Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass. Thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, I want to take a look back at the weekend's snowfall. So the first map we look at here is the 72-hour total accumulated snow from the National Snowfall Analysis, but this is through Saturday evening. What I'm trying to do here is trying to just gauge how well our model's been predicting snow so far this year. Overall, inside of a week, the European model has actually done a pretty good job. This was the forecast for that same time period from last week, and we can see if I just kind of go back and forth here. I know the maps are in a little bit different projection, but you can see overall the performance has been pretty good. Now, thinking about that last storm system that came through on the new year, we did have quite a bit of ice across parts of the Midwest. And the picture over there on the left, this was actually posted on the National Weather Service Kansas City website near Warrensburg, Missouri. An incredible picture here of a windmill here, kind of, I think, slinging ice as it was spinning around here, accumulating it. Now, there was quite a bit of ice accumulation in Missouri, but it spread not only there, but into parts of Iowa, Illinois, even into Wisconsin, Indiana. There were several locations across the Midwest. And that picture on the right, that's actually in my yard. And so just getting an idea here of about, I would say, generally less than 1/4 of an inch of total ice accumulation in through parts of central Illinois. Some places quite a bit more than that. But my weekend was shot because I have 15 white pine trees in my yard, and I don't know why I bought the house with 15 white pine trees, but remember, they keep their needles, and so all that additional weight, I spent much of my day on Saturday just hauling broken limbs. Thankfully, no damage to the houses or fences or anything like that, but still, what may seem insignificant when you think about just this much accumulation, when you add that up on top of these white pine trees, you get quite a bit of damage here. So let's take a look as the skies cleared on Sunday here at this satellite animation. This is GOES 16. I want to focus right on in the midsection of the country. There's a couple of neat things to see here. The very heavy snow that was in this part of Texas, you can see it melting away, and we've already kind of lost it right in through here where that heavy snow did come through right there around the beginning of the new year. But if we take a look at the snow cover we do have in the plains, so take a look at the winter wheat belt right in through here, and then get a little bit farther to the north of it here in the northern plains and corn belt, I do want to zoom in and show you something. This was that same animation zoomed in over the Dakotas and Minnesota, and I saw some interesting things here. First of all, can you almost see the banding of the snow right in through this area on the ground? Very unique signature here on the back side of that system as it came through, producing these bands of snow. The next thing was right in through there. Look at this really dark region right here, and you can actually see it best as the sun sets. In fact, you're actually starting to see a shadow there. And I thought you might get a kick out of this, but this is an elevation map or a relief map of South Dakota. And of course, you can see their major river systems, but look at the geographic feature that is right in through here. And if you go back to that previous animation, the shadows that you're seeing right in through this area line up, look at it, right in through here, with this feature in South Dakota. But what I'd like to do now is to bring this discussion back to our bigger picture things we're dealing with this winter, which is a discussion about drought. The latest drought monitor released here on New Year's Eve shows us that we did not have much change overall, except for across the east, where we did have multiple large systems kind of roll through that area, bringing in quite a bit of precipitation, plus the snowmelt in the northeast. But generally through the plains, getting back into the Four Corner states in the west, not much of a change at all in the drought situation. So we're asking these questions, are we seeing the pattern evolve in a way to get any sort of change? And so I want to take you to this map. What it shows you here is this is just looking back over the month of December at the anomalous flow in the jet stream. There's a couple of neat things I want to point out to you. Right in through here, you see these strong winds. Now, these are anomalies, but they're coming out of the west toward the east right here along the equator. That's actually the top part of the circulation of this La Nina. So we're going to watch to see if that changes. But one of the things that typically does is it tends to rob a lot of the momentum out of what is normally coming right in through this direction, which is a stronger subtropical jet stream flow. We don't have that right now, and instead what we've had throughout the month of December was, well, as you can see here, the flow that kind of anomalously split, and we were leaving the western part of the United States void. In fact, up at the jet stream level, there was anomalous easterlies moving across parts of the United States. So we're just looking at this and looking for where things are drastically different from what what we would call normal. So the jet stream's been very fast over this part of the Pacific, but not so much over the rest of North America. We can also see this anomalous flow here. This was part of the ridges that were building over the Atlantic. Now, what do we do with that information? Well, we draw it back into this map, which shows us, just looking back over the last 30 days, our precipitation with respect to normal. It's been quite active along the East Coast. We've had multiple systems coming out of the southern plains, but if you get, look at parts of New Mexico over to Arizona, Nevada, California, a lot of locations here seeing significantly less than 50% of the normal precipitation. Parts of the high plains in Montana, North Dakota, and even sections of Minnesota, Wisconsin, still on the drier side of things. So here's the problem. A week ago when we were talking, I was really kind of getting a bit excited about the fact that the nose of this jet was going to be pushing farther and farther to the east and coming into the west coast. But now the forecast for the next couple of days here is for that same feature to split and to break. And you can see all the components here of this jet stream flow that are no longer targeting the west coast with strong zonal winds, meaning west to east, and instead the flow is broken up yet again here. And that just shows us that while in the near term, as I started off this video suggesting that the models are doing well, they seem to really be missing the pattern anything beyond about 8 to 10 days. So let me give you an example. On December 31st, I showed you this map, which looked at the time period of January 7th through the 14th at precipitation anomalies. And we saw, things were wetter than average here, very normal for this time of year in the midsection of the United States and Canadian prairie, and then wet along the East Coast. Well, if I take those drawings off, this is the new forecast for that same time period, January 7th to the 14th, but now it's a day 4 through 10 forecast. So if I kind of go back and forth here, here's the new forecast. Here's the same time period, but the old forecast. Look at how much more significantly drier parts of the western United States are around the Great Lakes Basin, but we're still keeping the Carolinas over here on the wetter side of things. So just the changes we're seeing by watching the differences in that Pacific jet stream behavior. We also have some downstream blocking as well. We've been talking about for a while. It's this negative North Atlantic oscillation setup, and I want to show you what's really changed here. So if we play this upper level height pattern forward, we are going to be seeing that throughout this week there is a system that'll be taking shape here over the next few days in the midsection of the country and then moving toward the south and east. So you can see that trough there. But this trough is largely disconnected from the coldest air due to the ridging that you see in place here, this anomalous ridging. Now, what's unfortunate is we had been seeing a lot of these troughs sweeping out of the Gulf of Alaska, cutting into the Pacific Northwest, and then diving into the midsection of the country. That's what gave us the relatively active last 10 days or so. But now this seems to be setting up with a much more kind of firm establishment of a ridge here across the western United States. And it seems to be connected to what's happening here with the anomalously high heights between the Hudson Bay and Greenland in this area. So what we end up getting here out of this pattern is negative Arctic oscillation, negative North Atlantic oscillation with a positive Pacific North American pattern. And that's going to send quite a bit of cold air across the southern tier of the U.S., but we're going to block these systems away from pummeling the west coast and instead churn them up right here in the Gulf of Alaska. So this is all the way out now to next Monday. And as I just play this forward, the latest European, you can just see the anomalous ridging into this area. And I think there's quite a few reasons for this, and I'll step you through them here at the end, but let's look at the immediate effect. Right now, our all hazards weather map. Strong winds across the west, winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories. We still have about a day and a half here of very, very active weather. I'll show you that in a moment. Where the snow and ice tried to melt yesterday, saturated the lower atmosphere, and we got cold last night, we do have a dense fog advisory out through this particular area. So given that those two regions seem to be the most active, let's go look at our high-resolution NAM model, and let's play this forward. So this is through early this morning. There's a low that's going right here through parts of Ontario, and its front is being kind of dragged through this part of Ontario down into Minnesota. And as it does so, it will be bringing in some light mixed precipitation in through this region. But like I said, the west coast still has that strong onshore flow today. This is Monday, 10 a.m. Central Time here. As we push throughout the day, well, you can see the two features. There's our weak front, bringing in some light snow in this area, And like I said, this last big push at some heavy precipitation here from the northern half of California through Oregon, Washington, then eventually getting over into parts of Idaho. Letting this move on through the overnight hours into early tomorrow, what's going to happen here is that piece that came through the northwest is going to try to emerge here eventually into the plains. And you're going to see it right in through here, starting to take shape Tuesday afternoon and evening time period. So we're going to see some light snow in through here. But after that, the trajectory changes for the West Coast, and now coastal Oregon, Washington, British Columbia seem to get the fair share of the better onshore flow, leaving California over on the drier side of things. I'll show what I mean here in just a few moments. But notice this is out through 6 a.m. Wednesday. Here's our low taking shape, so we could be seeing on Wednesday morning, overnight hours, Tuesday night to Wednesday morning, some snow in through this region. Now from there, I'm going to switch over to the European model to pick up on that pattern. We'll pause it here. This is Wednesday morning. So Wednesday afternoon and evening. Now what we're going to notice here is that the low is going to favor the more southerly development simply because that's where the main upper level trough will sit. And so what you see here is that getting into Wednesday evening, going to Thursday morning, that's where our low is going to push through. It's the southern, Mississippi River Valley. Could be seeing some mixture of sleet, freezing rain, and snow right here in northern Arkansas into southern Missouri as this low cuts across the Mississippi River and then heads over toward the East Coast. Some snow in the Appalachian Mountains early Friday morning here, and then that low exits after bringing in some pretty chilly air on the back side of it here through North Carolina. You can see the potential here for some snow, and you notice that that's getting down here, closer to the Piedmont in this particular region. Now look west. See where the low is? It's targeting British Columbia. So this brings precipitation typically down to being just, Sacramento Valley and north. That's what we tend to see when we get a pattern like this. As I play this forward, you see the next low, it's off the screen a little bit, but it comes into the same area. So the heavy precipitation's in through this region. Now something to be on the lookout for this weekend. The models are not yet settled on this, but you see this system down here taking shape over Texas and New Mexico. We're going to have to watch this all week long to see if this one does pull pretty far to the south here, potentially. Let's just walk back through there. This is going to be Sunday morning, afternoon, and evening across parts of Texas. But the thing is that you noticed I wasn't talking too much about the Midwest, the central and northern plains, the Great Lakes Basin throughout much of this forecast. And it's because when we just put together the next 7 days, overall, very light precipitation in this region. In fact, some places in here not expecting to pick up any. With the southerly storm track, we do see that this is where our most active region is. And as we said, unlike what we thought where this precipitation was going to get farther to the south, with that shift in the jet stream flow, here we are in the Sacramento Valley north, picking up our best chances of precipitation in the next week. It's sometimes easier to see this if we look at anomalies, so I just want to show you this map. Same time period, the next week, but now we're looking at differences from normal. So now you can really see those locations that are picking up the much above average precip, while the other locations are quite dry. Beyond that, I've mentioned these things. The negative North Atlantic Oscillation, that means there's a ridge over the Arctic. The negative Arctic Oscillation, that means there's a ridge over the Arctic. The Greenland block, that's the negative NAO. And this right here, that ridge is a part of the positive PNA pattern. What this will likely do is give us a colder than normal southern tier of the United States, and a drier central part of the United States, and a drier west coast. And we see that here. This is the new week 2 forecast. Systems targeting British Columbia, you can just put a line there, and to the south of it, we're going to be drier. Notice how we don't see the same frequency of storm systems moving through the Midwest over toward the Great Lakes Basin as we had seen previously. And I'll just let you know, the GFS long-range ensemble looks very similar. Stretching this all the way out, I wanted to look over the time period of the 15th of January through the 15th of February. This is very much a La Nina looking pattern. You can see wetter than average conditions here and in through here, but still no hint of the development of a strong subtropical jet stream that's coming in from Southern California through the Four Corner States into Texas. So this will be the benchmark against which we measure the next, let's call it 45 days worth of precipitation. So you can see that while we could be going into a lull over the next 10 plus days, the longer range models are still quite active as we look out here through this midwinter time period across much of the United States, with the exception of this region in through here, given the lack of that subtropical jet stream feature. Talk about temperatures. Today, Monday, across much of the country, it's mild for this time of year. So you can see here the numbers represent the high temperatures and the colors represent the differences from normal. Let's play it forward, though, and see how things progress into Tuesday. Now getting into Wednesday, let's get all the way to Thursday because the pattern doesn't change too much until we get toward the end of the week. Now remember, at this point, we see the lows cutting down here farther to the south, especially by Friday. Now we've got that colder air in place south compared to normal, but still milder patterns a bit farther to the north. We see that lasts into the weekend. Whoops, there's Saturday. And now let's get into Sunday. Now this particular pattern, we see the colder air in through here with the warmer air, and I know we don't get the Canadian numbers up here, but the warm air farther into the northern interior of the United States seems to be where the pattern's going to be going with that negative North Atlantic oscillation. And I'm going to be honest, I think the European model has a better handle on these anomalies, keeping it much cooler than normal down here across the south as the ridging really pushes, here along the west coast into the Canadian prairie, and with the negative phase of the North Atlantic oscillation, keeping it warmer than average there. Now remember, these are anomalies. It's still cold in Canada, but this is compared to normal. Going out here now to the day 10 through 15, we continue to see something very similar to that. Looking longer term, though, as we wrap this up, we've now got a better handle, I think, on what the MJO is going to do. It seems to be wanting to come out down here into phase 2 and then move over into phase 3. Now, historically, phase 2 correlates to a pattern where we do get quite a bit of cold air here with that warm air pushing up into the Canadian Maritimes on the eastern side of the continent. It's kind of the same thing for phase 3. Do you see that? So we could see better chances of having cooler air given the tropics behaving like this with warmer air in place in this region. From there, though, let's talk about La Nina. Still a strong push of those trade winds here, but as we've been talking about, this La Nina is fading. Now, speaking of that, we notice that doing that same analysis, the 15th of January through the 15th of February, we start to see a bit of a temperature pattern change. Can you see it? This region here favoring near average to cooler than average weather, warmer across the south and warmer here in the Canadian Maritimes into parts of Quebec, in that region. So this again is our other benchmark to compare our mid-winter pattern here from the European model. So what typically happens when there's a La Nina? So January into February, we tend to be more mild across the south, and our cooler air does tend to come from this area. And even using my analog years here, you can see the more mild weather to the south with the warmth heading over toward the eastern part of the country and our cold air intrusions at times coming from this direction. So I think our next 10 days are just a bit of a break in the flow compared to what I expect to see for the rest of January and into February. And it will all ultimately be complicated by this. We still see that over the next 10 days, a pretty large disruption in the stratospheric polar vortex. Here's the most important thing. While those zonal winds are going way down here almost to record territory, you can see that the vortex is broken up into two separate pieces, right? And neither of them are sitting over the lower 48 or Canada. So this means that this polar vortex disruption could have bigger implications for parts of Asia, Russia, Europe, than it could have for, I think, North America. We'll keep an eye on it, okay? Hey, I hope you all have had a good start to the new year. I look forward to giving you updates later on this week. Until then, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.